Hello everyone, this is Julian Ravens. It is late and the year is finally winding down, and to be honest, the mood feels a little heavy. Tonight, it is that strange time of year where the calendar says we should be celebrating, but the news cycle suggests we should be hiding under the bed. There is a sense of exhaustion in the air, not just from the holidays, but from the sheer mental gymnastics required to keep up with reality. Just you and me here in the quiet trying to make sense of a world that seems to have rewritten its own script while we were sleeping. Before we wade into the swamp, I want to invite you to join this conversation. If you value taking a moment to breathe and look at things without the shouting and without the performative outrage, please consider subscribing. It is not about numbers for me, it is about building a room where we can actually hear each other think. We are just two people talking in the dark, trying to find the signal in all this noise. If this were a movie script, the studio executives would have sent it back for being too unrealistic. We have a former president shouting over the season finale of a reality show about survival while facing a deadline for the release of documents involving a notorious trafficker, all while a magical unicorn introduces a boy band named after her gastrointestinal disorder. You literally cannot make this up, because if you did, people would say you were trying too hard. It is a fever dream. It is the kind of narrative chaos that makes you wonder if the writers of our reality have gone on strike and left the AI in charge. So let us establish the context. We are at the end of the year. Jimmy Kimmel is wrapping up his show for the season, and the vibe is distinct. It is not just the usual holiday cheer. It is a mix of relief and dread. He talks about spinning wheels and the feeling of inflicting damage on ourselves on purpose. That is a profound observation for a late-night comedy show. We are looking at a country that feels like it is in the middle of an extended psychotic episode. And right in the center of this swirling vortex, we have the President of the United States giving an end-of-year message that felt less like a fireside chat and more like a hostage negotiation with teleprompter. Now let us address the elephant in the room. Or perhaps we should call it the predator in the room. The Epstein files. According to reports, the deadline for the Justice Department to release these files is looming. Tomorrow at midnight. It is the night before Epstein, and all through the house not a creature is sleeping. Especially not in Washington, D.C. There are rumors flying everywhere about who is on that list and what those redacted pages contain. But let us stick to the facts. Congress passed a law requiring these files to be public. That is a fact. The deadline is tomorrow. That is a fact. The tension is palpable. You have people in high places checking their stockings to see if they are getting coal or a subpoena. The irony, of course, is that the Department of Justice is being asked to arrest or expose people within its own orbit. As was pointed out tonight, if the DOJ breaks the law by withholding the files, who arrests them? Do they handcuff themselves? It is a closed loop of accountability that feels more like a Mobius strip than a justice system. And in the middle of this waiting game, we have reports from the New York Times detailing a relationship between Trump and Epstein that was far more complex and intimate than the official narrative suggests. We are talking about allegations of parties at Mar-a-Lago with girls as young as 14, being offered alcohol. So why the sudden erratic speech from the president last night? Why the shouting? Why the 18 minutes of high-volume word salad interrupting primetime television? We have to look at the motive. When a magician waves his left hand wildly, it is usually because he does not want you to look at what his right hand is doing. Trump's speech was a wall of sound. It was designed to occupy the airwaves. It was 18 straight minutes of yelling. It was described as Bisai-esque. He was racing through a script claiming that a year ago the country was dead. Absolutely dead. And that now we are the hottest country in the world. Think about that phrasing. The hottest country. It sounds like he is describing a new nightclub or a girlfriend he is trying to show off to his ex. It does not sound like geopolitical analysis. It sounds like a sales pitch from a man who knows the return policy is about to expire. The motive here appears to be pure distraction. Fill the zone with noise so that when the clock strikes midnight and the files potentially drop, everyone is too exhausted from the shouting to read the fine print. Let us look at the specific details of this performance, because the devil is always in the details, and in this case the details are screaming for attention. According to reports and the visual evidence provided by the broadcast itself, the president appeared physically agitated in a way that goes beyond his usual bluster. We are used to the hand gestures and the weaving, but this was different. He was sweating. The lighting was harsh. He looked like a man who was trying to sell a timeshare, while the building behind him was actively burning down. Let us really drill down into the visual landscape of this moment, because if you watched it closely, you saw something that felt fundamentally broken. According to reports from those analyzing the footage, the president's eyes were darting back and forth across the teleprompter with a frantic intensity that suggested he was reading the words for the very first time. He wasn't speaking to the American people, he was fighting with the text. He was gripping the podium so hard that his knuckles were visibly wide, as if the wood beneath his hands was the only thing keeping him from floating away into the stratosphere of his own delusions. There was a specific quality to his voice that we need to talk about. It wasn't the confident baritone of a leader, it was the breathless rasp of a salesman who knows the customer is walking toward the door. According to reports, the audio levels were peaking constantly because he wasn't modulating his volume. He was shouting into a void. It was a wall of noise, a sonic assault. He was sweating profusely, not a healthy glow, but the cold, clammy sheen of a man under immense pressure. The makeup on his face seemed to be melting under the studio lights, creating a stark contrast between the orange hue of his skin and the pale fear in his eyes. And look at the body language. According to reports, behavior experts have noted the specific way he leaned over the microphone. It was predatory. It was aggressive, but it was also defensive. He was shrinking into his shoulders like a boxer expecting a blow that he couldn't see coming. Every time he paused, it wasn't for emphasis, it was to gulp air. It was a physiological display of panic disguised as power. He was weaving back and forth, swaying on his feet in a way that made you wonder if he was physically stable. He kept repeating phrases like a skipping record. He kept saying dead, 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 as if by saying it enough times he could make it true. It was hypnotic in the worst possible way. He was trying to cast a spell over the audience, trying to override their memories with his own voice. According to reports, the people in the room described the atmosphere as tense and uncomfortable. It didn't feel like a victory lap. It felt like a desperate plea for validation from a room that was contractually obligated to be there. He claimed that 1 year ago the country was dead. Let us really sit with that statement for a moment, just you and me, dead, not struggling, not in a recession, dead. He is describing the United States of America as a corpse that he personally resurrected. It is a messianic delusion. According to reports, economic indicators a year ago showed growth, but in his narrative, reality ceases to exist until he enters the room. It is like a toddler believing the world disappears when they close their eyes. To claim the country was dead is to insult every person who went to work, every person who paid their mortgage, and every person who kept the lights on while he was out of office. It is a theft of our collective effort to survive. Then came the math, the glorious, impossible math. He shouted that he lowered drug prices by 600%. I want you to picture what that looks like in the real world. If you go to the pharmacy to buy insulin and it costs $100, a 100% reduction makes it free. You walk out paying nothing. A 200% reduction means the pharmacist opens the register and hands you a $100 bill along with your medicine. A 600% reduction implies that getting sick is now the most profitable job in America. You would go to the doctor just to get a prescription so you could pay your rent. It is absurd. It is laughable. But it is also dangerous because it reveals a complete detachment from the constraints of reality. He is not just exaggerating numbers, he is inventing a new system of arithmetic, where the laws of economics bow to his ego. According to reports, fact checkers were losing their minds in real time trying to pass this. But how do you fact check a hallucination? You cannot use a calculator to correct a fever dream. And then we have to talk about the visual of the cannabis research signing. This is a moment that should have been historic. According to reports, this legislation could open the door for medical breakthroughs that millions of people have been waiting for. It is a serious topic involving serious science. And there sits the President of the United States surrounded by lawmakers and cameras. And he is quite literally falling asleep. His eyes are heavy. His head is dipping. He looks like a grandfather at a Thanksgiving dinner who ate too much turkey and is fighting a losing battle against the Sandman. While people are speaking about democratizing research and ending decades of prohibition, the man in charge is powering down. It is the ultimate visual metaphor for his governance. He is present in body but absent in spirit. He is there for the photo opportunity, but he is checked out of the job. It signals to the world that the details do not matter to him. The policy does not matter. The only thing that keeps him awake is the sound of his own voice or the roar of a rally crowd. When the actual work of governing happens, he needs a nap. But the detail that really reveals the absurdity of this moment, the expensive detail, is what is happening at the Kennedy Center. The president is taking a victory lap for a unanimous vote to rename the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. On the surface, he says he is honored. He says he was surprised. But here is the twist. He appointed every single member of that board. He made himself the chairman. It is like holding a surprise party for yourself and then acting shocked when you walk in the door. He claims he saved the institution from financial ruin and physical destruction. But the threat of physical destruction came from him. He was the one threatening to destroy the bill that funded it. He saved the hostage from himself. And now he wants his name on the building next to the man who actually defined a generation of service. It is a perfect encapsulation of the ego at play here. It is not enough to govern. You have to brand. You have to paste your name in gold letters over history, even if you have to rewrite that history to make the letters fit. Why does this matter? Why should we care if he renames a building or falls asleep at a meeting? It matters because it signals a fundamental shift in how we view truth and shared reality. When you have a leader who stands in front of a room full of Jewish people during Hanukkah and explains the story of the oil to them as if they have never heard it, before you are witnessing a profound disconnect, he asks if everyone knows the story. These are people celebrating the holiday. It is like going to a Christmas mass and asking the Pope if he has heard the one about the baby in the manger. This matters because it is an act of cultural erasure disguised as leadership. By explaining their own history back to them, he is asserting dominance over their narrative. He is saying that nothing is true until he speaks it. The story of Hanukkah does not belong to the Jewish people in that moment, it belongs to him, because he is the one holding the microphone. It is a small moment, but it reveals a massive pathology. It is the behavior of a man who believes he is the main character of the universe and everyone else is just an extra waiting for a cue. It matters because when truth becomes malleable, when history becomes a branding exercise, we lose the ground beneath our feet. If he can rename the Kennedy Center based on a lie about saving it, what else can he rename? What other history can be overwritten? According to reports, there are already discussions about altering the way history is taught in schools to align with this dead country narrative. This is how you unmoor a society. You take away the shared markers of reality. You tell them that up is down, that 600% is a real number. and that the country was a graveyard before you arrived. This matters because it is an assault on the concept of expertise and memory. When the leader stands up and says the country was dead, he is telling you that your memory of the last year is wrong. He is telling you that your struggles, your successes, and your life didn't happen unless he acknowledges them. It is gaslighting on an industrial scale. It creates a population that is unsure of its own footing. And when people are unsure, when they are dizzy from the vertigo of constant lies, they are easier to control. They stop trusting their own eyes and start trusting the only voice that is shouting loud enough to drown out the doubt. It matters because we are watching the privatization of the American identity. The Kennedy Center is not just a building, it is a symbol of public art and public service. By slapping his name on it, he is turning a public monument into a private franchise. He is treating the United States government like a real estate portfolio. It signals that nothing is sacred, nothing is off limits, and everything is for sale. If the branding opportunity is right, it degrades the very idea of public service because it suggests that the only reason to serve is to get your name on the door. It turns citizenship into a transaction. This is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern. We see it with the plans to rename everything. The suggestion to squeeze himself into the chair next to Lincoln. The joke about renaming Washington, D.C. to Washington, D.T. It sounds like a joke, but with this administration, the line between satire and policy is invisible. We see the same pattern with the new crackdowns on health care and personal identity. You have Dr. Oz and figures like Jim O'Neill holding press conferences to announce government crackdowns on transgender health care. They stand there reciting mantras. Men are men. Women are women. It is repetitive. It is hypnotic. It sounds less like medical advice and more like a religious chant designed to ward off complexity. They are focused on things that almost never happen, like children having sex change operations, and they are throwing out numbers like $150,000 per surgery to scare people. This leads to real consequences. While they are distracting us with culture war mantras and phantom surgeries for children, real healthcare subsidies are expiring. The subsidies that keep premiums affordable for millions of Americans are set to vanish at the end of the month. Republicans in Congress seem content to let them lapse. The plan to replace them is not a comprehensive system. It is a concept of a plan. It is a one-time check for $2,000. Think about the math on that. That check might cover the premium for a family for 1 month. Maybe January. What happens in February? What happens when you get sick in July? You are on your own. But hey, you got a check with the president's signature on it, so you should be grateful. The consequence is that normal people are going to face financial ruin, while the leadership argues about renaming buildings and policing pronouns. The pain is real. The policy is theater. I know what some of you are thinking. You might be thinking that at least he is shaking things up. At least he is challenging the status quo. He is rescheduling cannabis. He is talking about democratizing research. And sure, on paper, those sound like good things. But look closer. Look at the execution. Look at the man sleeping through the details. Look at the democratization. That really just opens the door for corporate interests to patent what used to be a plant. Is he really shaking up the status quo, or is he just shaking the vending machine until everything falls out into his own pockets? The disruption is not for your benefit. It is for the consolidation of power. When they say they are protecting children by banning health care, they are really just asserting control over bodily autonomy. When they say they are saving the Kennedy Center, they are really just engaged in a branding exercise. If this continues, we are heading toward a future where reality is entirely subjective based on the whims of the leader. If the trend holds, we will see the Lincoln Memorial renamed. We will see the history books edited to say that the country was dead before 2024. We will see a healthcare system that consists entirely of GoFundMe pages and one-time stimulus checks sent out right before elections. We are looking at a future where the government is not a service provider but a reality show producer, and we are all just unpaid extras. Imagine a world where your citizenship is treated like a subscription service. If you don't applaud loud enough at the rallies, your benefits get throttled. If you question the 600% math, you get demonetized from society. According to reports, there is already talk of making civil service employees pass loyalty tests, not to the Constitution but to the man himself. We are inching toward a feudal system where the lords live in branded towers and the peasants are given just enough entertainment to keep them from realizing they are starving. We could see the privatization of national symbols, the Statue of Liberty brought to you by a casino conglomerate, the Grand Canyon renamed the Trump Rift. It sounds hyperbolic, I know, but look at where we are. We are talking about a man who wants to put his name on the Kennedy Center because he signed a check. That was not his money. The logical endpoint of this narcissism is the complete commercialization of the American identity. We become a franchise. And franchises do not have citizens, they have customers. And customers are always right until they run out of money. Consider the logical extension of the concept of a plan. If this continues, we will stop having laws and start having concepts of laws. Speed limits will be suggestions based on who you voted for. Taxes will be optional for those who buy the deluxe Patriot package. We are moving toward a tiered society where truth is a premium feature locked behind a paywall. According to reports, discussions are already happening about privatizing essential government data. Imagine having to pay a subscription fee just to see the weather report, because the National Weather Service has been rebranded as a luxury content provider. We are looking at a future where the State of the Union is no longer a report to Congress, but a pay-per-view event with corporate sponsors. The State of our Union is strong, brought to you by MyPillow. It sounds funny until you realize we are halfway there. If the trajectory holds, the very idea of public goods will vanish. Public parks, public schools, public broadcasting. All of it rebranded, all of it sold off, all of it turned into content for the brand. This trajectory suggests a future where facts are not just alternative, they are obsolete. According to reports, legal experts are already warning that the definition of treason or sedition could be rewritten to include criticism of the leader's brand. It is a soft totalitarianism. It does not need soldiers on every corner, it just needs to control the narrative so completely. That dissent sounds like insanity. If you control the math, and you control the history, and you control the names on the buildings, you control the reality. And if this continues, the only thing left of the American experiment will be a logo on a hat, and a bill that nobody can afford to pay. I am not here to tell you what to think. I am not here to tell you who to vote for. But I am here to tell you that this is not normal. It is not normal to have a president explain Hanukkah to Jews. It is not normal to have a healthcare plan that is just a concept after 10 years. It is not normal to have a Justice Department investigating itself while the person who appointed them waits to see if he is implicated. We grew up believing in certain things: truth, justice, the idea that there is an American way that involves looking out for your neighbor, not just looking out for your ratings. It feels like those values are being eroded not by a single cataclysmic event, but by 1,000 small absurdities, by 1,000 lies told so loudly and so confidently that we start to question our own eyes. To wrap this up, let us go back to the most absurd image of the night: the Chanucorn. A man in a unicorn costume interrupting the monologue to introduce a Jewish boy band named IBS. It was ridiculous. It was silly. It was a bad pun about irritable bowel syndrome. And yet, in a strange way, it was the most honest thing on television. It was honest about its absurdity. It was honest about being a distraction. It didn't pretend to be policy. It didn't pretend to be saving the country. It was just a moment of pure unadulterated nonsense in a world that is trying to pass off nonsense as serious governance. When the fake unicorn makes more sense than the president's speech, you know we have crossed a threshold. We are tired. We are confused. And we are looking for clarity in a room full of smoke and mirrors. So stay informed. Keep your eyes open. Don't let the noise drown out the signal. And remember that even when the script makes no sense, we are still here. It is just you and me having a conversation, trying to keep the flame of sanity burning. For one more night. Good night, everyone.